Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Historical Humans Reacts. And on today's episode, Cotswold archaeology experts uncover secrets of the past during work at city campus. But if that isn't clickbaity enough, archaeologists find hundreds of skeletons underneath a former department store. And that is exactly what happened. Archaeologists from Cotswold Archaeology carried out an extensive excavation at the former location of a Debenhams, which is a store that is being transformed into a modern center of teaching, learning, community partnerships, which is supposed to open this year.
Yep. And as it so happens, the department store occupied the space that was previously held by St. Aldate's Church, which was built in the medieval period and has since been subsumed by society.
And
Uh, yeah.
this excavation ended up taking place because they knew the church was somewhere around here, but they didn't quite remember how big or where or how many bodies were buried in the church's burial ground. And lo and behold, that is exactly what the archaeologists dug up.
Yeah, they really didn't have any floor plan or schematic or really record of what the church looked like in its imprint. So the archaeologists were having the fun decision of going in blind and seeing what hits shovel first. And they appear to have ended up in the graveyard.
And this is what happens in a lot of archaeology in the modern day is as much as we like to think Pompeii is continuously excavated for hundreds of years, in reality a lot of archaeological finds happen in what's known as cultural resource management, or I believe in England it's called mitigative archaeology or mitigation archaeology. I could be wrong on that second part, but what happens is anytime construction happens, they send a team of archaeologists to go out and basically make sure that they're not going to destroy something exactly like this.
Yep.
And the interesting part in my mind is what they actually ended up discovering was parts of this medieval church that had been demolished in the 1650s. And one of the things that they had used the church for was basically salvaging all the good stones and rocks and everything and using them in other parishes throughout the nearby town because of damages sustained during the English Civil War.
Yeah, it turns out the reason this particular church no longer exists is, in fact, Oliver Cromwell. We do not like that man here.
Why is it always Cromwell?
Yeah, yeah. For one thing, he's British.
Yeah. And
Uh, yeah,
they did eventually this is the part that you laugh at how circular history is. So in the mid 18th century they rebuilt a church on the same site that survived until the 1960s when they demolished it to build the department store.
yeah. Get out of the way, God. We got a clearance sale.
Yeah, for whatever reason, apparently God's a huge fan of sales.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it's interesting.
they the excavations so far have they found the courtyard and have more or less outlined the footprint of the entire church. And with that, 83 brick lined burial vaults within the church itself.
And each one of those burial vaults could contain obviously more than one vault. A lot of times they were bought by families or by estates or different organizations that would have a lot of burials in the same vaults.
Yeah, and that is true. In and below these 83 burial vaults, they found approximately 317 skeletons, 150 of which have been confirmed to be from the 18th century church, and 170 of which are believed to be from the medieval church that got torn apart in the Civil War.
It's also kind of interesting too because they actually uncovered a lot of. So those 83 brickline burial vaults were originally uncovered during the construction activities in the 1950s.
Yeah.
So they had actually known that and they had removed the burials from that. So these 150 post medieval burials were not contained in the vault and were actually buried in the courtyard. And then they
Yeah.
went even deeper and found an additional 170 earlier burials, which those they believe relate to the medieval church.
Yeah. And the medieval church burials actually revealed something that proves archaeological science can be truly terrifying. See, you can hide how much candy you're eating from your dentist, but not from your archaeologist. Because as it turns out with these burials, there was an increase in sugar intake among English people in the mid 16th century, right before this the first version of the church gets destroyed. And all the burials that date right up to the layer where the church gets leveled, they all show signs of increased sugar consumption. The people had more candy.
It's just very interesting too because we're obviously able to tell the footprints of the two churches, the 18th century and the what 15th century, 16th century.
Yeah, it's yeah,
I'm 14th century. Sorry, it's part of a mid 14th century window arch that they found.
yeah,
And the interesting thing is that I think will be cool is they actually have a plan to store the archaeological remains that they locate on the site itself, where they're gonna put a display up. So
yeah.
kind of a cool bit of living history. And what's even crazier in my mind is not only have they done excavations in the basement, that a series of the pits actually revealed evidence of Roman activity.
Oh yeah, yeah. The Romans were there. Um, that's kind of the explanation for a lot of English towns and cities is the Romans were there, and that's usually what ends up happening. That's why London exists.
And the cool thing here is you could tell that this site had been occupied for roughly about 1,000 years in total. And the one of the project officers, Cliff Bateman, makes a really good point is while the archaeological works are complete on site, they're going to be doing scientific analysis of the finds and human remains to find out even more information. So they're going to take everything to the lab, they're going to do further analysis, they're going to do comparative analysis, and end up just seeing what information that they can populate about these artifacts and these people, just to try and contribute to the overall story, the holistic whole of everything that's included here.
Yeah, like for example, tracking the change in your teeth based on whether or not you had access to sugar,
Well, and
which was
here's
a real thing they were doing and is like the world's most time delayed diabetes monitor.
another cool thing that they can do that I'm honestly thrilled with is the fact that you can actually take a look at the bones and the human remains and you can do isotope analysis. And by looking at the carbon and nitrogen isotopes in both the bones and teeth, you can geolocate where someone was born and where they lived, along with telling what their diet consisted of. In this case, obviously sugars, but if you eat a lot of grains, your teeth actually wear down a lot more. If you eat a lot of fish, large amounts of nitrogen get put into your body. If you eat a lot of just plant life or other organic compounds, that's where you get a lot of carbon intake. So you can use all of those and basically tell, yes, this one skeleton buried in this far corner of the church, yeah, it doesn't match up with the rest of them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And one of the things that helps make this study a little bit more unique is they're taking all the burials, all the skeletons from an urban church. So this is a study of an urban environment, which doesn't always get kind of the same study of like a lot of other sites where we get repeated burials and do a lot of these skeletal analysis. They come from more rural communities. They're more of the agricultural centers that we see come out of this. This is going to be a fun comparison point for changes in rural diets versus changes in urban diets, which that's a level of study that hasn't really gotten a ton of focus.
And this is all stuff that happens basically on the heels of the bulldozer. I mean, archaeologists have a very limited time frame to go in, basically remove as much material culture as they can, and
Yeah,
then they basically have to bury it up and let the bulldozers tear apart the site, with the exception of if it truly is a remarkable one of one site, they usually will find some way to preserve it or some way to incorporate it. A couple examples of this is a lot of times they'll put plexiglass flooring so you can see the foundations of the older building beneath you. And that could be kind of cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is a great point for us to wrap up today's episode. Just kind of a cool thing that ends up uncovering. And the clickbaity title of skeletons found under department store never goes amiss. But if you
Yeah.
guys enjoy, if, did you have a final thought?
No, I just said yeah. I just said yeah. I was not going to make any reference to potential serial killerism or how at least one of them was an employee, which they
uh,
weren't, by the way.
Alrighty. Just like Benjamin Franklin, his house in London had 13 skeletons, but nobody talks about that. Well, thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, let us know down below, and we'll see you in the next one.